So first off, Mr. Mckillop, thank you very much for the opportunity to work with you during our community-based learning project. And so wondering if you could please tell us about this chapter of the Canadian Military Historical Society and how it all got started.
Well, the original purpose of the society was to get information and then to share information specifically for people that are interested in things military. And we started as a organization right after the Second World War. And most of us belonged to an organization in the UK that was called the Military Historical Society. We then later decided we would be the Military Historical Society of Canada to help us identify sort of who we were. And our original parent organization, they had chapters in New Zealand, Australia, and the United States, and all over. So that was why we chose to be put Canada by our name. And we were, this of course obviously is in the days before computers, and we really used to have to dig for information. Take a lot of time doing it. Most of our members were also collectors. They had their own collections of one type and another. And we were, I'd say, really active up until probably around 1981 or 82. And the other thing that we got involved in along the line, though, was we started to do mall shows. And that all started really in the 2005, which was the year of the veteran. And we went to White Oaks Mall and asked them if they'd be interested if we put on a show of things military. And but specifically, we would invite all the veterans that cared to do so to come down and meet us at the mall. And we had a lot of things on display that we thought they could be interested in. And that became our primary focus for a while. We did mall shows from Windsor all the way through to Conestoga. And we were so gratified by the reception that we'd get. And then the one thing that became a real eye-opener to us was we would find so many of the young people had little or no understanding about what went on, certainly in World War II. And quite often it would be, they would be aware, well, my grandfather, in some cases even the fathers, served, but they never talked about it. So we're of the opinion that it was, we could hardly blame the young people if they didn't know anything about it. If people who had experienced it were not prepared to share that, and willing to share it. So then we moved sort of in that direction. And the one thing that I was telling you about was we started to put a lot of effort into helping a teacher, former high school history teacher in Tillsonburg, Robin Barker James, with the project he had. He had started to take his students out to his farm, and they dug trenches and the foxholes and strong points and all that sort of thing. There was also a demonstration of a casualty clearing station. That's what first thing that happens to somebody that's wounded. Basically, you go back to the clearing station, and the clearing station that Robin had is very graphic. So the younger people were seeing what the results of being in the trenches were, and I'd say that some of the pictures that we had in that are almost sort of, they're mind turning in a lot of ways. But that's, we were trying to point out to young people, that's the reality of war. That there's no glory. Forget the band and forget waving the flags and things like that. There's the other downside to war, which is something that we all should be aware of. So we started basically to become more and more interested in the fact that there was a whole group of people, young people out there, that we might be able to at least help to get some little understanding about war, what war was all about. And the thing is, I was pointing out to you that, like with Charlie Fox, you have no idea what some of the experiences, some of the people that are, you just walk by and, you wouldn't even think that, that they might have even been in any service. But when you find their stories, and we found as veterans, of course, we could talk to them. And we did a lot of work in Parkwood and that. But it was say like with Charlie, as I said, Charlie Fox actually was a fellow who put Rommel out of business in his Spitfire, and Charlie was the guy was in his office all the time, and we had the various shows and that, and he had an insight into war, which obviously was unique to him. But there was somebody, it was an asset that was right here in London that we basically didn't take as much use or make as much use of it as we realize now that we could have and should have, because it was legacy information. And so basically that was really what we were at, was kind of in the position of looking at what Robin does with helping educate younger people, and saying to ourselves, okay, is there a role we can play here? That's kind of where we're at right now.
All right, Mr. Mckillop, can you please tell us about your own military history, if you'd be so kind?
Okay, yeah, basically, in the late 1950s, I joined the Canadian Forces as a officer cadet, and we were working with militia units, not full-time regular units, but the militia unit that I was with was the Royal Winnipeg Rifles, and we took 3.5 years to get our commission, and it was an eye-opener, really, because once you join the military, you become a member of a family, and it's and you also are then able to share history of that regiment with everybody else that was involved with it, and it's, to me, like, one of the things, of course, it's important to understand about the Canadian Forces is that they're going to send you where they want to send you, and you're going to do what they want you to do, and that sort of thing. And you have to, first of all, the basic training is to get you to organize, to work as a group. And that's why they do so much stuff, certainly in those days, on the parade square. If you get, like, say, 30 men together, you've got to take them from an individual group to a squad that basically can obey commands and foot drill and that sort of thing. So it's very disciplined that way. And our regiment is still really active out in Winnipeg, and I get their, they've got the regimental history in their bulletins and that sort of thing. So they're very, very active. But my time was, of course, at a certain age, basically the military doesn't need you any longer. And so I reached that point. So I'm just still a reserve member, but I doubt if they're ever going to have to call me.
Why is the society so important to preserving our history?
Well, I think it's like if we don't learn from history, we are destined to repeat it. And I think this would be the thing that's absolutely imperative to us, is that in the world that's starting to develop now, the more people have an understanding of who we are as a people, what Canada is, etc. And the unfortunate point sort of is it's the result of wars, essentially, where we have almost, I'm not sure whether we've learned anything from the wars, generally speaking, but there is, we feel, a very, very valid reason for young people to be able to understand, for example, to know, okay, in relationship to Canada, why did Canada get involved in the Boer War in 1900? What was in that for Canada? Well, there's an answer, of course, why we got into it, basically. And then the same thing would be, why did we get into the First World War? What happened that Canada's, declared war on Germany, and we went to war against Germany then. And then what happened after that war was over? And then we got into a period in between, in which essentially the Army and the Navy and the Air Force were diminished greatly, and that came through the 20s and the 30s, and then we got involved in another war, which was the Second World War, and then came Korea, and then it just sort of goes on and on. There is a continuous connection of war in our history, like it or not, basically, and we feel that as younger people are aware of why these things happen. For example, Germany didn't declare war on us. We declared war on Germany twice. Okay, so basically, it would be, why did that happen? Well, for young people, it would be important to understand what led up to that. Why did we get involved in this war? Well, there's fairly simple reasons, and they're out there, and they're part and parcel of what you can learn from history if you want to take the time to do it. And we feel for young people, it would help give them a better sense of who they are as Canadians, as not having that information. So.
After talking to people about the society, what do you hope that they remember and learn from their experience?
Well, I guess what we are hoping that people will remember, I think that's we're looking to the future. We can, because we want to develop a program for young people, and so if we get to talk to adults and that, for example, that they're all very, very interested in the farm, in the history camp out in Tillsonburg, and what we find too is that we end up being able to be of service to them. Quite often they'll mention a book that they a title that they would like to have, and quite often we'll have the titles in our own library, and so that, and then we help people find the information on their family history with Department of Veterans Affairs. Like with the kind of things like that, with the that those were brought to us by members of the family that didn't know anything about their father's service, and we were able to go to Veterans Affairs and pull information for them, basically, and so we felt that was, obviously a good thing. We're sharing the information with them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you can
But
help
we're-
a family find a family member's military
Yeah.
history.
And say that our biggest problem right now is the fact that we stopped being interested in acquiring members probably 20 years ago. And but it was only since we started talking to the young people at the malls and things like that that we kind of identified that what could be and maybe should be the direction in which this whole organization is moving.
You've got quite a collection of memorabilia here.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what kind of items does the collection consist of? And can you share with us your favorite item and provide us with a few words regarding this item?
Oh, well, yeah, basically, yes, we do have artifacts here. But as I told you earlier on, when we were doing the mall shows, we had some really, really good displays and things like that. They're specifically made for being in mall shows. Really, what we have left around here is sort of what didn't go someplace else. A lot of our members, of course, are collectors. So a lot of times when the society didn't need something else, and that one of the members would get it. So that is what we think is almost the exciting part about history, is that more and more now we're getting history to talk with the internet and all of the information that's on there. So that would be
Yeah, well,
I think
thank
that's all
you
we
so
got.
much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mckillop. It's been a real pleasure working with you.
yeah.
Come all ye about Canadians, I'd have you lend an ear concerning a fine ditty that would make your courage cheer, concerning an engagement that we had at Sandwich Town. The courage